The biggest problem with trying to clean out this glue with the router is that the router bit will get hot very quickly and melt the glue, and then it sticks to this. So it's a bit aggravating, but I can't think of a much better way to do it.
It's in the wind that you're leaving me again.
Well, it ain't pretty, but it cleaned it out pretty nice. I didn't create any problem, but it sure ain't pretty down in there. All I did was remove glue. You can see that there's still glue in there. That dark stuff is glue. The wood is the light stuff. So I did not go into the wood yet with just what I'm doing, and you can see how deep the hole is, I think. The hole is pretty darn deep there. It's just a mess. You would have to have a problem like that in addition. That just makes it that much tougher to fix. As usual, that's kind of the par for the course. And I don't mean to pick on people trying to do their own work, but when an amateur gets in there with some weird idea and tries to do something like that, that just messes up everything. I have a feeling that's what they might have done was, tried to come in from this way to get the neck out. That's probably what they did. They probably drilled in there to help get the neck out whenever they reset the neck. So that's probably where the problem came from. I'm going to keep working on this some more off camera, cleaning it up, and I'll show you what my next step is. Now that I look on the inside, now again, I don't know, this could be from the factory, but I see a hole drilled through this way into the neck heel, so there is a screw been put in up into the neck heel. Fortunately, I have not hit the screw yet with my Dremel tool, but anyway, there is definitely a screw from the inside into this. Now again, that could have been from the factory. I don't really know. Yeah, I just don't know that part, whether that was or not. All I do know is I've got a mess on my hands like usual, and I have to fix it. Because this other seam goes down here lower, I'm tempted to just cut all this off, build it all back, and do it right, because this is not good. I'm actually tempted to cut off some more, because the next seam here would almost be level with all that. I just don't know if I want to go that deep into it, or maybe just fill this area here with wood somehow, cut it out square and put a block of wood in there. I don't know which way I want to go. I just know the way it is not good. I've done quite a bit more cleanup off camera, and that is not pretty. Yeah, it's a big deep hole, and I finally got down to where the screw threads are. I can see them down there finally. Let me just say this, you heard me get on my rant before about don't glue random pieces of wood inside your mandolin. Well, I also say don't glue random pieces of metal inside your mandolin. Don't put screws in, don't put nails in. Yeah, unless you really, really know what you're doing. All it's going to do is create additional problems. I hadn't really paid too much attention to this, but the back has been off of this, by the way. You can see there's a line, and you can see where they broke the plastic binding right there, where they came across, and they took it all apart here. It's real obvious now that it has had the back off of it. I'm sure all of that happened when they were trying to get the neck out of this. Wow. What a shame, what a shame. Wish I'd have got it the first time instead of the second time. I've taken the dental pick and cleaned out the rest of this glue, and I'm really at a loss as to how I want to build this back. Yeah, I just don't know what the best way to build it back is. There's no really great option, I got to tell you that. That's the sad thing. I'll have to think on it some more. Well, as much as I kind of hate to do it, I think I'm going to go ahead and take off some more of this heel. I think I can see a seam way up here, and I can see a seam about right here. The problem with taking off this seam, and I may be talking myself back out of it, is that it should have some of the dovetail attached to this, and I really don't want to take it out if it does. I just don't know. It's just such a mess. I really don't know how I'm going to fill this area right here. I really don't want to cut away more than I have to, but I have to fill this, and it's not going to fill easy the way it is. I was thinking all along about setting a router on here and trying to route out a nice square or something, but the problem with that is there's nothing to set it on. It's nothing simple, I can tell you that. We'll see where I go from there. Well, since there's nothing flat here, and it would be complicated to make anything to work to hold it flat and keep this thing still, I'm just going by hand, and we'll see what happens.
There's no disguise, it's in your eyes. You can't fool me this time. Before you up and leave me, there's something you should know.
Well, I'd like to say that was just good enough, but honestly, that's not very good. It's mostly because of what they've done to it. There's big holes here. There's just big, gaping holes. You can see back down in there the big gaping hole. Now, I did not cut back in there. I only cut right here. I can see there's tons of glue piled up in there. I'm still digging glue out. It's just piles of glue that's just poured in there. That's why it's not holding. You cannot work with glue in gobs and expect it to hold anything. It has to be a thin layer of glue between two pieces of wood, then it will hold. Otherwise, it will not hold at all. I really don't know if what I'm doing here is going to work now because of what I ran into. That's what I said when I started, is you never know what you're going to run into. And of course, we had to run into stuff. As bad as I hate to, I'm actually tempted to fill that whole cavity with epoxy. The whole thing. Because that'll run down in there, fill the whole thing up. We still have quite a bit here that I can glue to, and I can get a good bond there. It'll also bond to the epoxy to some degree, though not as well. Before I do that, I'm going to make sure that the neck angle is going to work, all that kind of stuff. And I'll have to do a lot of testing off camera here, and I'll show you what I'm doing if I think it's interesting and it's something you need to see. Well, testing the neck angle with my straight edge, it's just about right. It's just barely touching this. It's basically just right at the moment. So if we can keep it there, that's what we need. In order to keep it there, I don't feel comfortable until I fill all this back in. And the only way I know to fill that back in right now would be with epoxy. And even that, I'm not crazy about the idea, but I think it'll fill up the dovetail void that's there and help keep this thing from pulling forward a little bit. Yeah, it's just ugly, and it's not worth spending a ton more time and money on it, so I've got to find the quickest, easiest way to do it. And I think this will be it. Well, you've heard me rant about epoxy before, that it's basically not glue, and that is true. Now, I know a lot of people will argue with that and say, well, you're, totally against the rest of the world because everybody else thinks it's glue. Well, epoxy's not glue. I'm sorry, you can believe what you want, but it's not glue. It's a resinous material that fills voids real well, and things stick to it, but it's not glue. It's not nearly as strong as glue is when you're talking about on a 1-for-1 basis. In other words, if you took two pieces of wood, glued them together with epoxy, and you take them with wood glue, I guarantee you the wood glue will be stronger bond. But having said that, we need to do something here, and there's really no good way to fix this. So it's a mess. It truly is. And I'm just going to do something here and give it a shot. This is kind of like a Hail Mary. Again, I didn't create the problem. I'm just trying to fix it. Somebody else created this mess, and it's a mess. And I'm not kidding. It's a real mess. So I don't know how long I've got on this to stir it up, but I'm going to get it stirred up here. And I'm going to get it dumped in the hole as quick as I can. I mean, there's a lot here, and I'm pouring a lot into this hole. As you can see, it's still just pouring down in there. This is a huge void. Should never have been done this way. You know, it looks easy on video, but people try to do things that we're doing and they don't do it correctly. And this is one of those cases where it was not done correctly, even remotely correctly. Okay, I'm going to try to get some more here. Wow, it's going to take more than that. I cannot believe it. That was a lot. And it's going to take more than that to do this. It's starting to run out down here, wouldn't you know? Wouldn't you know? What that tells me is I got to figure out a way to block that little hole. So I'll try blocking it with tape. I don't know if that'll do it. You know you got to have a lot of holes if it starts running out of a neck like that. You know it's not done well when epoxy, as thick as that is, runs out of a big hole like that. Well, while it's still wet, I'm going to try to mix up some more, but I'm going to have to, I don't know, got to find something better to mix it in because I didn't think it would take that much.
Just sit right down beside me, just once before you go. Remember when we first met, we had a love so fine. We vowed we love each other until the end of time.
I'm going to just pour it in there, see if it fills up the void. It's still creeping down. I'm seriously telling you, they left a huge void in this. Shame on them, whoever them is. Putting that on there to help hold that because there's some pressure there now. It doesn't look like it's really escaping, so I think it's okay. And I kid you not, there's got to be someplace it's got to be coming out because it's all way down in there yet again, and I don't see anything escaping anywhere. Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. It's even bigger than I thought. I knew it was a big hole, but I didn't think it was this big. And quite honestly, I don't even know if this much is going to fill it up. What a mess. It looks like it's full there finally. That was a lot of epoxy. That is just nuts. I seriously never dreamed that would happen. I thought, well, it looks like a pretty big hole, but it's probably not that big. But that's ridiculous there. They must not have much of a dovetail left, actually. Believe it or not, I'm still hopeful that my fix will work. I kind of think it will. Because the part that I'm going to glue on here is stronger than all the rest of that combined. It's just a sad deal that I have to go through all this. I'm getting rid of the excess that's in the way here. It looks like it's sinking down in there yet again. I hope it's not running out. It is. It's running out on this other side now. It's almost unbelievable. I've seen just about everything with these things. Some of this stuff, even though I see it, I don't hardly believe it. And this is one of those. I wonder how they even thought they were going to keep a neck in a mandolin without having the holes filled. And here we go again. It's spilling out on this side. There's too much hydraulic pressure. That's my problem. There's hydraulic pressure there pushing the tape out of the way. I'm still hoping to fill the whole void here in this one application so I don't have to do it again tomorrow. The question is, will the tape hold the deluge? I'm still afraid it's going to be running out somewhere else. That's why I'm looking around. It seems to be holding yet again. That was a lot of epoxy down in there. In fact, these two bottles were nearly completely full, and you can see about the level there that I poured out of each one. And I mean, I had used a tiny bit out of each of those before, but it was a tiny amount. They were nearly to the top right here, and all that pretty much went in this hole. I mean, if it was a hole that big on a guitar neck, that would be a big hole. A hole that big on a mandolin neck is pretty much unbelievable. Well, I hope this epoxy doesn't expand a ton as it hardens, because if it does, it's going to blow that whole joint apart with that much in there. Yeah, somebody will take this apart down the road years from now and wonder why anybody would have done it this way. I would have to agree with them that it was pretty stupid. It's a Hail Mary, and it's really the only option I could come up with for such a mess. I think I'm going to tilt this back like this to keep this part kind of level. That keeps it forced back in the full hole here. I don't know if this will grab anything. I don't think it will. No, it's not. It's not going to work. The clamp isn't really long enough to do what I need to do. I don't think this is going to work because it's too slick. It'd be nice if it would work, but I don't think it will. I'm not trying to really pull it hard anyway. I just want a little bit of pull on it, just a tiny bit. And I don't think I'm going to get any. It's just going to slide, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's just too slick. Trying to see if it's still leaking, and I kind of think it is. Yeah, I think it's actually leaking around the actual joint. It's amazing that it just keeps finding places to go, and I don't see it running out anywhere, so I don't know where it's going. Maybe it's going inside the instrument. It wouldn't surprise me at this point. Yeah, I'm feeling around in there just to be sure, because at this point it wouldn't surprise me. I'm feeling around in there on the inside, and I got my fingers in there, and I don't see anything on my fingers, so I guess we're okay there. Thank goodness. I'm watching to see if it goes down again. I don't know how I could seal it any better with all this tape on there. Right at the moment, it doesn't look like it's going down. That would be wonderful if it will just stay there and harden in place. Might have to give that a couple of days to harden, as thick as that was. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe this, my friends. There is so much leakage on this thing. I cannot even believe it. I mean, it's not like it's just wide open. It's just little fine seepage cracks, and it just keeps leaking this epoxy out of here. Oh my gosh. What a nightmare. I've crammed everything I can into every hole I can to try to stop it from leaking, but it's still leaking. Oh my gosh, it's got to start setting up a little bit soon, you would think. I've crammed napkins under here, back in there under the fingerboard, because it started seeping back in there a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. I just don't have a clue if this is going to work at this point. I have a sneaking suspicion that if I go to the house and come back tomorrow, this is going to all be leaked out all over the table, is about what I'm expecting. It's holding fairly well, but doggone over time is where it creeps. I mean, like, you don't really see it creeping with your eyes, but if you wait 5 minutes, it'll creep. Incidentally, now that the epoxy is so clear, you can see down through there, and I can see the screw better now. It's magnified, and it goes all the way up to about here. It's down in there, of course, but now the epoxy will seal the screw up too, so oh my gosh, I'm sure that was put in by whoever did all this. I don't think that was done at the factory. It's been about 5 minutes and there has been some more seepage. I can see it. It's probably less than it's been so far, but there's some seepage there. And the doggone epoxy just won't get set up. That's the problem. If it would just set up, this would be all over with. Seems to be leaking in under this tape right here is where it seems to be leaking the most at this point. What a shame. What a shame, shame, shame. I've used this stuff before and it seemed to cure fairly quickly. But guess what? I just looked it up, and of course on the internet it says it has a dry time of 36 hours and a cure time of 72 hours. So it looks to me like this is going to set a long time. Well, my friends, it's the next morning, and I was hoping this would be full, but of course it creeped down, and all that tape and all that padding I had crammed up in there, I've had to dig all that apart and dig it out, and I've got it fairly cleaned up. It looks pretty good, but I need to refill this again. I'm hoping this time it won't run out, that it's sealed by now. I would sure think so. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this up again. I tell you, it's never simple. It's never easy. We'll just have to see how it goes.
It's in the wind, it's in the wind, that you're leaving me again. There's no disguise, it's in your eyes, you can't fool me this time.
Is it going to creep this time, or is it going to hold? Can't really say I know for sure yet. But it looks really flat right now. This stuff takes quite a while to set up. It supposedly dries in 32 hours and cures in 72. I'm going to set it over out of the way for about an hour or two and then check it again. And if it still needs some more stuff in there, then I'll scrape some more of this up and put it in there. But right now it looks like it's going to hold, best I can tell. I haven't worked on weekends for quite a long time, but I am getting behind further and further all the time, and there's more instruments coming in this week. So that's the name of that tune. What I'm doing here is I'm going to try to trace out a pattern for this inlay that I'm going to do, this dovetail inlay. So I've taped this card here where it can't move. And I'm just going to try to trace the shape of the body here and try to get a fairly accurate representation of the heel. The heel's it's pretty far from it, so it's a lot harder to get the heel accurate. But I can get an approximation at least. Just using a spare time card here because it's a little bit heavy cardboard. Okay, I kind of know how that's going here, so I'm just going to kind of pencil in a darker line. Okay, and then we know that this is the approximate arc of the mandolin right there. You know, I want to keep it fairly wide, but not as wide as the heel. And I want to just approximate a real good dovetail here. That's an approximation. I may cut that back a little more, I don't know. Just gonna try cutting that out first and seeing what it looks like. So that's basically what you end up with. Looks pretty symmetrical, and the question is, does it look like it's going to be good enough to cover this? And it looks just about right. I might make this part just a teeny bit bigger when I actually do it, cut it out of the wood, and the reason being that you can always cut it back. And this part here Could probably have a little bit more taken out right here. That looks pretty good. So now it's just trace this pattern on to the mandolin itself. May have to go with some double stick tape. I really do want to keep it pretty precise. By having a pattern ahead of time, that should make it a lot easier for me. That's awkward for me cutting that direction, so I'll just try it a different way. Do it the way of a woodworker. That works easier than the scissors for me in a case like that. Well, anyway, now should be able to peel off the double stick tape, I hope, and hopefully get it set in the right place the first time. That's what I was afraid of. Man, look at that, it just jumped down there and stuck on its own before I was ready. That's pretty close. It's about as close as I'll do. I'm gonna indicate on this side that I want to leave more on this side for sure. This side's probably about right, but that side I'm going to need to leave a little more on. Yeah, it's not perfect. It's canted that way is the problem. I don't think I can get it back off. I'm not happy with that. That's close, but it's just not good enough. I'll never get it off of here. That's the problem. That looks better. The only thing I don't like is this looks a little cockeyed, but this part up here looks pretty good. So I think I'm going to go ahead and cut this off a little more square to the body. It's still not absolutely symmetrical, but it's, you know, it's going to be covered up anyway with dye and everything to hopefully hide it. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to just make this my new pattern right here. And I'm going to go ahead and actually score the finish. And then I'm going to score this finish. Okay, and now one more time can I get it back off. And it would be awesome if it would go ahead and come off one more time. And it says nope. Ain't gonna do it. I don't guess it really matters. Yeah, I guess it did. It actually did come off. I didn't think it was coming off, but it did. Okay, we're good. Okay, so there's what we're doing to make this solid. I think you can see it there. So now the trick is, how do I route that out without creating more trouble for myself? I want to route that out real nice and clean. And we'll see what I come up with for that. Well, I've got a little bit of a setup going on here. I have the neck clamped down to the table so it can't move too easily. I put some towels under the body to keep the body from rocking. I put this slick plastic on here so that when the base of the router's riding on here, it won't, you know, scratch up the instrument for one thing. Plus, the slick plastic, it'll actually slide around a little bit better. Got my Dremel with the base, and I haven't checked anything yet as far as depth goes. This looks like it's going to be pretty close to the depth I'd be looking for. I'm not wanting to go all the way through the back. I'm wanting to go half or 2/3 of the way through the back, and that's a little difficult to predict, but it looks like this might be just about right. So I'm going to go with this for right now, and we're just going to turn it on and burn some wood and see what happens, because this is the kind of thing, there's no pattern you can follow. You just got to blaze a trail as you're going. Well, that looks pretty good. I got to be honest, I'm seeing something already. It looks to me like there's some kind of other wood here. Maybe that's the seam, I don't know. I'm not going to take it up and show it to you yet because I'd have to take everything out of this deal, but there's two different colors woods there. It could be right on the seam, I don't really know, but something looks weird there. The depth of the cut looks, I'm okay with that. I might want it a little deeper before too long, but we're going to go with that for right now. I'm going to see if I can't fix up a little deal here to blow the dust off by putting some tape on this bit. And I'm going to also hook up his light that he gave me. You can probably see I put some tape on it there on the bit. If not, maybe you can see it better from that side. But anyway, there's tape on there now to act like a fan. I hope that'll keep the dust blown out of there a little bit better. And I've got the light that I'm going to plug in right now. That helps a lot too, of course. All right, so let's give it another shot.
I know you found another who wants your love so fine. But darling, please don't leave me. Just take a little time.
That went just about like I was expecting or hoping. What I was seeing there in the discoloration is partly that they had tried to drill and pin this already. That was part of it. So you can see the pins in there. I'll go ahead and take it out of the mold now and show you because I think I'm done with that. And we'll just go ahead and take off the extra tape here and stuff. But you can see where they have attempted to pin this neck in before. This is plywood. And you know, I should have guessed that anyway, but I don't know why I wasn't thinking in terms of plywood. But from my perspective, that's better because this dovetail will be even stronger in plywood. So in other words, there's multiple plies that I went down through. And now I have to make a piece that fits this and the step, because this is actually higher than this. So it's going to be a complicated fix. First thing I got to do though is clean up the dovetail because it's a round bit and I'm in a square corner there or a triangular corner. I mean, I could leave it round, but I've already etched it, so I'm going to go ahead and clean it up and make it fit the pattern better. And we'll move on. I'll show you what I do next. Well, off camera, I cleaned that up with some chisels and small X-Acto blades and things. Got in there and cleaned it out as best I can. Now the trick is to make a piece of maple that we can fit into this and make it fit these weird angles, because this angle here is actually like this. I'm exaggerating it a bit, but it is definitely lower here than it is back here. So it's going uphill. This one is flat and there's a step in addition. So right here it steps down about a 1/16 of an inch or a little more, and then it's flat. So there's going to be a lot of joinery going on right here. This is not going to be simple. So I started by just cutting a block of maple out that would be big enough to cover this area. And now I probably, in my cleanup haste, probably threw my pattern away. So I'll have to go fish that out of the trash can more than likely. But anyway, I'm going to try to put this pattern on here and cut it out roughly. Well, I won't lie, yes, I did throw it away by accident, of course, but I did. So now let's see if we can get this. This has still got the two-way tape on it, which is nice. And I'm going to put it down on here. And that should match what we're dealing with there. I'm just going to go over to the bandsaw and saw that out. I think that's what I'll do. Okay, let's saw this puppy out.
You know I love you, darling, and I know you love me. So won't you please consider our life and hopes and dreams. It's in the wind, it's in the wind that you're leaving me again. There's no disguise, it's in your eyes. You can't fool me this time.
I'm going to go over to the sander and knock some of this off just a little bit to clean it up. But this part here is cut fairly tight to the dimensions, so I'm hoping it's going to fit. We'll see. Well, assuming that the camera footage turned out over okay at the bandsaw, you just saw me saw this out. It looks like it's about to fit into that. It just needs a little bit of hand filing, maybe. Something like along those lines, maybe even just a little bit of hand chiseling. So let's try that first.
It's in the wind, 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 you win again, you win again, it's in the wind.
I think it wants to go. I think it's in there. Sorta, kinda in there. Just barely. It's just barely in there. Do it easier by shaving this than shaving the other thing, but I'm not really sure. I want it to be a very snug fit, of course. It's so close. Oh, it went. It went. I don't know if I'm all the way down or not, but it went significantly better. You can see now that I'm almost touching the heel. And yeah, we got some work cut out for us because we're going to have to make a step there. And we're going to have to tilt it a little bit more yet in addition to that, and a step. Can I get it back out now is the question. I think it's coming. Yeah, we definitely were in there that time. And I'm fairly sure my angle is not quite steep enough yet. I think it's part of my problem. Well, I'm going to go monkey a little bit off camera over at the sander, and I think that might help me.